Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today we're going to be talking about the exciting and somewhat scary topic of asteroid collisions. And we're going to discuss how likely are we to receive a very dangerous and very hazardous collision like the one you see right here in this simulation that has a potential of destroying our civilization. In other words, let's discuss, is this going to happen anytime soon, or are we going to be totally fine for the next few centuries? Let's talk about this, and welcome to What the Math. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is because, and I'm not even exaggerating here, pretty much every week I get a message from someone asking me to either confirm or deny an article written in a magazine somewhere out there on the internet that claims that an asteroid is about to strike our planet and we should all be packing our bags and basically going underground. In other words, I wanted to make this video to kind of clarify the confusion about asteroid collisions and also so-called NEOs or near-Earth objects that do pass close to our planet but usually pose no danger whatsoever. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail, and let's start with this beautiful illustration produced by the European Space Agency. This illustration categorizes asteroids into 5 specific types, with the more dangerous asteroids on this side and the slightly less dangerous asteroids on the other side, with the part that we're all curious about being right here. This is the dinosaur killer asteroids, or essentially asteroids that are large enough to completely extinguish our civilization almost instantly and possibly even cause another extinction event. In other words, asteroids that will produce something like this. And as you can see right here, it says almost all of them were found. Out of roughly about 930 of such asteroids, like you see the one on the screen here, that are a few kilometers in size, we've already discovered 912, and we're most likely going to find all of them within the next decade. This also means that we know exactly where they're going to be for the next hundreds and possibly even thousands of years, and as of today, none of them are going to be colliding with anything really. They're going to be staying in space for the next few hundreds of years. And this is actually really important to understand because in the last 2 decades or so, we got extremely good at finding new asteroids of all different sizes. The techniques and the actual telescopes used allowed us to discover over 1 million different rocks orbiting around the solar system, and because of the mathematics of their orbit and because we understand how their orbits work, we are able to predict where they're going to be for the next few hundreds of years. And all of this is actually listed on this site by NASA, and you can always go and check this yourself. This is known as SNELS, or the Center for Near Object Studies, and its main purpose is tracking different asteroids that we've discovered and making sure that none of them pose any danger. This site allows you to go through pretty much the entire catalog of all of these so-called near-Earth objects. And here, for example, let's take a look at what's going to happen in the next year. Under the distance, I'm going to choose the distance of about 5 lunar distances, which is about 1.5 million kilometers. So what do we see? It looks like in the next year or so, we're going to have 10 near-Earth approaches, with the closest one being right here at about 32% of the lunar distances, or that's about 100,000 kilometers. It's going to happen on September 1st, so I bet there's going to be a lot of chatter about this, and a lot of online articles are going to be using this picture and talking about the potential collision yet again. But this site allows you to see everything about the asteroid. So if you were to click on this right here, this is the asteroid discovered in 2011, you can then actually take a look at its orbit in more detail and even fast forward the orbit just to see where it's going to end up in the next 100 years or so. So here we can actually fast forward this and see if it ever collides with anything. And well, as you can probably imagine, it's not going to go anywhere and it's going to stay in its orbit for a very long time, until at least 2200, which is essentially 180 years from now. And we obviously also know its size, which makes it a relatively small asteroid, so in that sense it doesn't pose any danger to anything, and neither do any of these other asteroids for the next year or so. To make this a little bit more interesting, we can even look at just the future detections and decrease the distance to about 1 lunar distance, just to see the top 10 asteroids that are going to come close to our planet. And the closest one you've probably heard of before, the so-called Apophis, which is going to pass within about 30,000 kilometers of our planet in 2029. And this takes us back to this illustration. So we know that nothing is going to destroy our civilization, but Apophis-like asteroids do have a chance of creating a relatively powerful collision if they do strike a city, for example. As you can see here, we've discovered roughly around 80% of them, and about 20% are still missing. But from the ones we've discovered, from the 80% we found so far, only Apophis has a chance of approaching our planet within about 30,000 kilometers, and we know already that it's not going to strike our planet. This has been confirmed by different studies. But the remaining 1,000 asteroids of similar size that haven't been discovered yet are very likely just hiding somewhere really far away, and are also most likely not going to come toward our planet or near our planet, because anything near our planet has already been found. So anything that's size of Apophis has the same potential devastation effect, and also has the potential of coming close to our planet, has been already discovered in the last decade. Which is really why Apophis is right now the only such asteroid that we're kind of excited to study a little bit more about, especially because it's going to approach our planet so closely. But because there are still, I guess, 1,000 of these objects hiding, there's still a chance that maybe in the next few hundreds of years, at least a couple of these do come close to our planet, and we do expect a collision with a similar object to occur at least once every million years or so. And we do have signs of these collisions happening in the last few millions of years, such as, for example, the famous Greenland crater that was discovered a couple of years ago, that was essentially created by a rock that's about similar size to Apophis. So should we worry about these types of rocks? Well, not really, because once again, we have discovered all of the ones in the vicinity. We know none of them are going to collide with planet Earth. We also know that everything that has been discovered yet is most likely just on a completely different orbit and is not going to approach Earth at all. And so the only way that one of these rocks is going to make it toward Earth at some point is really going to be probably within the next million years once again. This is not going to be an event that's going to happen in the next few hundreds or even thousands of years. And that's pretty much guaranteed. And once again, you can check all of this yourself right here on the SNEL's website. But hypothetically speaking, let's just say that it did collide with like a big city, for example New York. What would happen? This website you can try yourself, I posted the link for this in the description, but essentially this is what it would look like if the asteroid would strike New York. The orange circle shows you the size of the crater, yellow circle shows you where most of the buildings would be destroyed, red circle shows you where a lot of the debris will still be quite dangerous, and the green circle shows you moderate damage. Although the chance of an asteroid like this hitting a city is also pretty low, mostly because most of the collisions today have always occurred over water, because water represents most of the surface of our planet. But the main point here is that Apophis-like asteroids do not strike our planet often enough, and there's going to be no future collisions in the next few thousands of years. But the more dangerous asteroids, the ones that we still don't really know much about, are the so-called Tunguska type and the Chelyabinsk-type meteorites that have made the news in the last few years. Here we've only discovered about 6,000 of such asteroids out of possibly 30,000 of them, and the smaller they are, the more likely we probably didn't find them just yet. The damage caused by a collision with such an asteroid is usually equivalent to a medium-sized nuclear bomb, so they are pretty dangerous, but not to the point where they're going to completely wipe out a civilization. And in terms of how often these collisions occur, it's anywhere from a few decades to every few hundreds of years. In other words, the famous Tunguska event that I covered in one of the previous videos is most likely going to happen in the next few hundred of years or so, but it's also probably going to happen over water once again. Whereas the much more common Chelyabinsk event is probably going to happen in the next few decades. But once again, as this map from NASA shows, it's very likely going to occur over water. As a matter of fact, the Chelyabinsk-like events right here occurred many times in the past in other regions, and in most of these regions, there was just nobody there to notice or to witness them. So these events do actually happen quite frequently. So as of right now, these types of events are actually the ones that are most worrisome to the scientists, simply because we haven't really discovered that many of these smaller rocks. They're also very difficult to find, and also because of their randomness in how they can actually approach from any angle toward the planet. They also happen frequent enough for us to worry about them, but once again, their damage potential is very low. Also, most of these end up being bolides, meaning that they explode in the atmosphere and never make it to the surface. Most of these asteroids do not form craters, and the explosion is aerial, not on the ground. But at the moment, these types of asteroids are the ones NASA and ESA are most concerned about, simply because of their frequency, and right now scientists are trying to focus on finding more of these and improving our techniques so we can actually detect them in advance as well. Current assumptions suggest that there's probably over 1 million similar asteroids, and a lot of these asteroids at some point might actually come close to our planet. Some of them might even decide to collide with it, but the vast majority, if not most of these asteroids, will produce no damage to human infrastructure or human life. So they are worrisome, but they're not super dangerous. The biggest worry, of course, being that we are still having trouble detecting a lot of these asteroids, and for the most part it's also very difficult to predict where they're going to collide. And in the last few years, only one such collision was actively tracked and predicted by the scientists, which I believe occurred somewhere right here in North Africa, but every other collision happened without us knowing about them. We've only discovered about them way afterwards. And so pretty much most of the modern search is really focusing on these types of asteroids. Mostly because we know that there's going to be more of these coming in the next few hundreds of years, and they do have a slight chance of causing some damage somewhere, and we want to avoid that. Whereas these larger rocks like Apophis or even more are almost certainly not going to happen in our lifetimes. So for that reason, scientists do not really worry about the larger rocks almost at all. Nevertheless, if you still want to learn more about these collisions or potential collisions with asteroids, or just want to know if something is going to collide with planet Earth, you really should just be going to SNAOS by NASA. This website has an up-to-date database of pretty much every rock discovered, and it also allows you to track all of the asteroids and calculates potential chances for collisions as well. But right now, according to the website, nothing is going to collide with planet Earth for the next few hundreds of years. So next time you see this picture again and an article claiming that an asteroid might collide with planet Earth, go to SNAOS and check it out by yourself. And so let's just summarize all of this and also use Tesla Roadster here as an example, just for the size comparison. These asteroids right here, there are quite a lot of them, we haven't really discovered that many just yet, but most of them produce very bright bolides, not a lot of destruction. Nevertheless, we don't really have good techniques of finding these, and they do seem to happen at least once every decade. So these are the asteroids we're currently most interested in. Then we have these slightly larger asteroids, and these most likely happen every few hundreds of years, possibly even every century, and though we found some of them, we haven't really discovered that many. These are the ones we're also kind of interested in, but we don't expect to have a collision with such an asteroid for at least a few more decades. Nevertheless, a collision with this type of a rock is somewhat scary, and most scientists today want to find better techniques to try to look for these specific asteroids. Then, as we zoom out, we discover Apophis. Now, these ones are no longer a danger to us. We've discovered pretty much most of them. We also know that a lot of these will not be coming close to our planet anytime soon. And so Apophis-like rocks are more of a curiosity and more of a way for us to study asteroids in general. Since Apophis is going to be coming close to planet Earth in 2029, several missions might be launched here to try to retrieve a sample. Although right now only Russia has been actually talking about it, so we don't really know if any of these missions are going to happen. And lastly, we have these so-called dinosaur killer rocks. Now these ones, we know pretty much most of them. There's maybe only a couple of them still missing, but for the most part we know that none of them will be coming close to our planet Earth anytime soon. And if a collision does occur with such a rock, it's going to be possibly in the next 100 million years or so. So obviously by then, most likely most of us are going to be very different. Life will have changed on our planet quite dramatically, and hopefully by then humans will also become an interstellar species. So overall, we don't really have that much to worry about, but the scientists still want to find better techniques to look for these smaller rocks. Simply because, well, for one, we don't want to have a surprise of a sudden bolide exploding over a city, and also for scientific reasons as well, because it allows us to study the evolution of the solar system as well. But are we going to experience any dangerous collision in the next 100 years or so? Very unlikely. It's unlikely that there's going to be anything major happening anytime soon, and the only thing that might happen is a near-Earth asteroid approach similar to the one from Apophis in 2029. And with these smaller rocks, because their mass is much lower, we also have a lot more options for how to redirect them if we do discover that one of them is coming toward our planet. But this is something we'll cover in one of the future videos, so make sure to subscribe, share this with someone who loves learning about space and sciences, and come back tomorrow to learn something you may have not known before. I'll see you tomorrow, space out, and as always, bye bye. Also, maybe consider supporting this channel on Patreon, it does help me quite a lot, and alternatively you can also support the channel by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt you can find in the description. Thank you, and bye bye.